Welcome to this lecture on game theory. So, what is game theory? Game theory is essentially the science of strategy, and game theory can be useful for board games such as chess or card games such as poker. But from a more scientific perspective, it provides a lens for understanding decisions in economics and politics, but it also extends to understanding developments in biology or everyday social interactions. So it is a powerful framework in order to model complex strategic interactions, and specifically interactions in which there is no cooperation. So game theory is also known as non-cooperative game theory. So what are we going to cover? So we will start with learning how to play a basic game and introduce basic terminology like dominance strategies, Nash equilibrium, social optimum, but also prisoner's dilemma. And once we have established basic terminology and an understanding for how to play basic games, we go more into specifics. We will first or next talk about coordination and anti-coordination games, which are games that essentially have two possible solutions, and then the interesting question is which of the two possible solutions is more likely. Then we will talk about some special cases. I already mentioned a prisoner's dilemma. A prisoner's dilemma is a game that has some kind of a solution which is not optimum to the players. And then the interesting question arises, how can players escape a game that seems to trap the players in a solution that's not optimum for both? Then we will talk about the difference or the implications of playing a game simultaneously versus playing it sequentially. Whenever you play a game simultaneously, you are more likely to have various solutions to a game. But when you play it sequentially, we can derive something which is known as a first mover advantage. And then in the third chapter or module, we will then also talk about games with weakly dominant strategies. So that introduces that sometimes player may be indifferent between choosing one strategy or the other, but that is a phenomenon on which can be built on for further interesting insights that we will also talk about in this lecture, and that is related to evolutionary stability. Well, so far we have then only talked about games that have some kind of a solution. Either they have two solutions, like in coordination or anti-coordination games, or they have one solution, like in a prisoner's dilemma, but the solution is not optimum for the players. And then we also have games that seemingly do not have any equilibrium or solution. But when that is the case, we always say the game has no solution in pure strategies. So most of the games that we will talk about until we reach mixed strategy games, those are games that are played in pure strategies. There's no randomization to the strategies. But when it comes to mixed strategy games, there is randomization. In that case, we say that the players of the game, they don't really think anymore, they just do things. And maybe a little bit confusing at this point, but we will get there too, so just keep that in the back of your mind, that we will also talk about mixed strategy games, and those are advancements of games that do not have an equilibrium in pure strategies. So In other words, we typically play mixed strategy games when we don't see an equilibrium in games with pure strategies. Then we will introduce advanced concepts such as payoff dominance and risk dominance, and those are very important insights to understand why certain equilibria are more persistent than others. And the interesting aspect here is that some equilibria that seem to be naturally having a higher payoff to all the players do not materialize. And then we will talk about evolutionary stable strategies, which takes into account aspects of mutations to players or systems of players, and we want to derive conditions under which certain mutations take over a set of players or when they do not take over a certain system of players. Okay, many of the concepts that I just introduced, I know they are vague, but that is what we are going to cover, and we will just start next with how to play a basic game and introduce some basic terminology.